Okay, I believe we can start. Hello, everyone, again. Welcome to the first Cultural Detour webinar. Cultural Detour is an accelerator program run within the Creative Europe program supported by European Union that is aimed at sustainable cultural tourism and especially at fostering the connection between culture, cultural heritage, and tourism with a special focus on sustainability. My name is Mateusz Strauss and I represent Arctur from Slovenia, a high-tech company working with digitalization of cultural heritage and a partner in Cultural Detour project. Today we are going to talk about digital nomadism and digital nomads. This is a recent trend that has gained popularity in the last years and is becoming more and more interesting also for many European tourist destinations and many people working in tourism in Europe. With me today is Drejc Kokošar from a Slovenian NGO, ID20, who has researched digital nomads for the past 2 years and has focused in his research primarily on digital nomadism in peripheral rural areas in Europe. Drejc, hi, hello.
Hello, Mateusz. Hello to everyone who joined this. I hope it will be interesting webinar. And of course, first of all, thank you for the whole Cultural Detour partnership to invite me to this webinar.
Yeah, today with Drejc, we will have around 1 hour to discuss digital nomadism. I invited you to talk about your research, your experiences. Here with us are predominantly providers, tourism providers from different areas in Europe. Many of them I see are from the Cultural Detour Accelerator program. I propose that we, at the beginning, share a little bit about your work, about your findings, and at the end, we let some time to discuss these things with others, if anyone has any question. But before we continue, Drejc, please share with us your story, who you are, what are your interests, and of course, what is your relationship with digital nomadism, how you came across that topic at all.
So first of all, I'm Drejc. I come from an NGO which is called ID20. That's an institute that is based in the small town in Slovenia called Idrija. Idrija is a place known for UNESCO heritage. It's a Slovenian UNESCO heritage site, mostly known for its 500 years old, years history of mining, but not just any mining. It was a mercury mining, and this is the thing that got us on the world map. So we became an important player in the past in the economy. But now we believe that Idrija as a small town should not be completely neglected and in the shadow of big cities, which are growing and growing, but should be also an important player, but now based on the culture. So if in the past the market connected and made the town and the whole area grew, now it's the culture and tourism which should support our area. And we started here in Idrija about 10 years ago, still as students. Later then we developed into institute. We deal primarily with cultural heritage. So how we can innovate in cultural heritage, but not just with we don't want just to be a normal safeguarding institution or something like this. Of course, that's very important, but it's important how to attract young people in believing in the cultural heritage. And in the past years, we've done quite a lot of research, a lot of projects, how to make sustainable projects in Idrija. We lead an example some big festivals here in our area on industrial culture or gastronomy. But the main thing was, of course, we are a small town. We have a nice nature. We have cultural heritage, everything. But can we attract young people from other areas to join us here in Idria, to visit us? Do not be just temporary visitors for one day, but be here for 1 week, 1 month, and 2 months, 3 months, or so on. And so how to do it? And the basic solution, actually, which showed very quickly, were digital nomads, because digital nomads are something that's important for the development of or maybe attracting, but I will talk this a little bit more maybe later in details.
Yeah, Drejc, so you run an Erasmus Plus research project, or a educational project, where you have researched different sites and different approaches to digital nomadism across Europe. And what I find here very interesting is that you're going against the stereotype that digital nomadism is only a thing for Southeastern Asia, beachside resorts, so very nice, let's say, summer locations. You focus basically on rural areas, right? On farm sites, on areas like that, right?
That's true, yes. Maybe our work is based on the thing that is always on the contrary what the people think. Because if only you look, I'm inspired by the mining history, which actually it's not a stereotypical inspiration, but through our work, through what we did, and we actually learned that you should look out of the box and look for the solutions outside where you are based in the comfort zone. So maybe Mateusz, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe you share a bit with us about the research that you did. And
yeah, I have a presentation, so I will share it. Can you see my screen, Mateusz?
Yes, yes.
And others? Yeah. If anyone doesn't see my screen, please let me know. So digital nomads, we see them as a catalyst for tourism development in rural areas. But let's go through a little bit how you can actually look at it in the few different ways. I'll start by the quote of a famous American writer, Henry, very, very, very controversial writer, but who was later changed many times through the life, his view on the places, on the life and itself, and so on. And he said, one's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. And this is what is in our focus when we are talking about cultural heritage and when we're also talking about digital nomads. So let us look at this picture. This is something what we probably imagine when we look at the picture of nomads. We were all nomads in the past. It's said to be. So of course, many decades, I mean, thousands of years, maybe millions of years, but still, we were nomads and we lived quite different. And experts and also artists sometimes say that nomad way of living is still here, is still inside us, so that we don't have a permanent location, that we like to change location, that we just seek new things in our life. And if you look at digital nomads, of course, the name is very nice, very appropriate, because they are still nomads, but they are nomads in digital, but also in analog, so in physical world, where they can move from place to place. What only they need is a computer and Wi-Fi. And the phenomena of digital nomads, which started especially in the COVID-19 years, but didn't stop there, and it's still growing, is based on some very interesting facts. So digital nomads are nomads who travel from one destination to another and work remotely. That's important. So it's different from the migrants who go somewhere else to work there, and they move because of the work. Digital nomads move because of the life itself, because they want to live in another place. They live normal and minimalistic life because they cannot bring much baggage with them. They like to meet new people and discover new locations. So because they are a digital generation, they of course are based on the computer, but still it's not everything. And if you look at travel trends in 2024, it very much connects with what we think about digital nomads. And if we combine this word of digital nomads and travel trends in 2024, we get something that we explored during our Nomadland project, which I will talk later. So what is important? You need to have a deeper experiences on your life wherever you travel. You need to bring a positive impact for the community and nature. Sustainability is very much in focus. People like slow travel, so enjoying the silence and the stars, and like to go to new and interesting places and like to immerse in wellness practices and of course sport practice and so on. So in the world right now, there is at least 35 million digital nomads. It's a huge how to say, target group for tourism, for traveling, which we don't yet know how to really tackle them. And an average age of digital nomads is 32 years. So they're quite young. And this is also very important. What we also discovered through our work is that, like, most of the people that start to work as digital nomads, they start around 25 years old, sometimes also younger. We met some people that were already 20 years old when they started, but still, like, it's below 30 most. So it's a very new generation, not only millennials, but Gen Z already. And what is interesting, young people are discovering the countryside. They're not going only as digital nomads, but more and more are actually discovering the countryside as digital nomads. So it's not only Bali, it's not only, I don't know, in Europe, Budapest or Prague or London, but of course London is a little bit more expensive, but still. And it's not only a seaside, it's also in the continental areas. We have very interesting ideas in the whole Europe. And why? Because countryside is a perfect destination for digital nomads. It brings you everything. You want peace, and you can bring a community there also. I will explain a little bit this later on. It's based on attracting young people back to the countryside. And we believe that actually one important thing is that it can also work with young people in the local area. So youth work, so work with young people, can be a catalyst for development of the countryside and also for attracting digital nomads. Because if you have people that are below 30 years old, they want to work with young people. And so you need youth centers, youth hostels, and so on to bring this infrastructure into your place. So why actually they are leaving the big cities? Because they're tired of cities. They're tired of noise. They're tired of everything that's connected with this kind of everyday living. They search for inner peace. And of course, they need only one thing: internet connection. More and more rural areas have this. Of course, not everything, which is an obstacle, but most of the rural location actually can afford to have internet connection, especially with satellite connections going on, Starlink. This will change the play on still more. What is important is they search for community. So what you need to bring is actually, it's good to bring some kind of retreats or co-livings. So this is all what we did throughout the Nomadland project. This was a Erasmus Plus Youth Key Action 2 project with 4 partners from Slovenia, Germany, Spain, and Croatia. We focus on the rural areas, youth work, and tourism. And our main question was how to attract digital nomads. And so we prepared quite a lot of different result solutions within the project. So within the project, we listened to digital nomads. We did a survey for and which is also published on our platform. I will mention it also later on. So an example, we asked them, what kind of accommodation do you prefer? What kind of factors are the most important when moving to a new country or new place? We interviewed 10 digital nomads, mostly young, because we focus on the young people. So here on this picture is Andrea. She is originally from Romania. And she decided to start first as a community manager through the Workaway platform. But then she actually began to live and work as a digital nomad in the co-living spaces. So what is co-living? Co-living is actually like some kind of a hostel, but with a more normally better accommodation possibilities, and with a strong community, and important with a co-working. And there is many this kind of co-livings in Europe. This is a big trend. New ones popping every month. And you can actually check our nomadism. It's also on the web page, on the platform, where it's more about this. I will also mention later. And we found 21 good practice of these co-livings and also retreats. On the right side of the picture of the screen, you have a picture of Kino. This is a retreat community in Italy. They organize at least few communities per year. We also talked to Serena, who works there. So it's an interesting interview in the nomadism. We got support and feedback throughout the project. We had a training activity on the island Ish, where we invited youth workers. So we got another opinion. And we published a magazine, as I already mentioned, nomadism. It's on our webpage. You're really invited to look at it. We can also share a link if you want. And it's a good way how to discover this area. But we didn't just stop at discovery or at exploration of the area, but we already prepared a first guide in the field. So Beyond the City Lights is a guide to developing digital nomadism in rural areas with a focus on youth work. So maybe you can ask what the tourism has with it. Also, there are special recommendations for the tourism workers. So also, we didn't forget tourism itself, but we combined these areas in a very interesting mix, which is not really common probably. So our first strategy in the field is also, here are decision makers, but we also have tourism workers. And we prepared the guide through European funds. So what are the steps towards having your own application? We supported numerous ideas in our areas because we already connected young people, and we prepared hackathons in each of the partner areas. And we listened to the stories of 20 young people from the countryside, so that we actually didn't give only the opinions of digital nomads, but also young people. And all this resulted in a platform, which is called Nomadland platform. You can find it at nomadland-project.com. And it brings you all material that we collected throughout the project, but also what is the main goal is to show that the countryside is attractive for digital nomads. So this is why we prepared interviews, we prepared good practices, and so on. And we are now at the end of the presentation. So of course there will be time now.
Thank you, Drejc, for this introduction. Maybe my first reflection or my first comment would be, so digital nomadism sounds like a big opportunity for also smaller places, and especially a big opportunity for sustainable cultural tourism, because digital nomads want to spend more time in communities, meaning that we have more time to develop the cultural element of tourism. And of course, as the new generations, they're more inclined towards sustainable practices. But is this opportunity for everyone, and especially for what kind of locations is it an opportunity? Can you try to reflect on your best practices?
So you're right, yeah, Mateusz. Actually, it's an interesting way for rural areas. And in our work, we were actually very cautious about this from the first month on, because of course, are digital nomads only suitable for seaside or coastline areas, or are they also suitable for, I don't know, alpine areas, former Mercury areas, whatever, or something else? And actually, I think the answer is quite positive. You can bring it everywhere in the Europe. You only need to have a wish or maybe a will to do it, and you need to know how to do it. This is also why we prepared a guide. But let's look at the nomadism, which is our magazine which we prepared. And in the nomadism, actually, we prepared 21 good practices. These good practices, we did it with a special focus that they are not based only on the coast or in the big touristic areas. So this is also why we got them into 4 different categories. These were soil, sea, ice, and fire. Soil were the one that were placed in the continental places in Europe, or somewhere that it's not something that they don't have any specific thing around them that would make them wow, from the landscape areas. Mostly on the plains, on the fields, and so on, but in the rural area, that's important. Then we have sea areas, the ones that are near the sea, of course, obvious ones, but also we didn't only focus on the ones that are in big touristic places. There are some which are not and are very interesting to look at. Then we have a category of ice. This is ones that are mostly based on the winter activities. Also tourism, also skiing. But on example, we have one co-living in the Norway. I was not there, so I don't know exactly how it looks like from the broader perspective. But looking at it, I think if you look on the map, they're in the middle of nowhere. But it's perfect place if you want to enjoy. And because co-living brings a community of the people who think similar to you. They come from IT sector, from the creativity sector, from the graphic design sector, and so on. You have a perfect opportunity to bring like a community in completely remote, random place. And the 4th category is fire. The fires in this category are the ones who connect different places, who are not really able yet to maybe establish their own co-living, which is quite hard, but they are ready to establish a retreat. And in the fire area, we have organizations who are active in organizing these retreats or co-livings somewhere in Europe.
Yeah. Thank you. Now, maybe just for a clarification, in this last answer, you mentioned retreats. Can you just shortly explain what is a retreat?
So co-living, we talked about co-living before. Co-living is something, or it's some place which acts as a place. I would say it's a permanent place. Permanent place where through the whole year you have people coming there and enjoying the world of digital nomads. You have activities for them and so on. It's like a hostel in the middle of the rural area, but with a co-working, place with big rooms, sometimes bungalows, sometimes. So it's really like it doesn't really act like, because when we think about hostels, we think about the low budget thing. Local living is not necessarily low budget thing, but acts similar to hostels. So you can bring actually people who have a lot of income to your areas. That's important. Retreat, that's a little bit different. Retreats are normally, as also the name tells, the title tells, they provide a temporary retreat from something that you are used to living in the everyday life. So they're normally shorter, let's say 2-3 weeks. Kino, Italy is a good practice, which is an excellent example of what retreat is, because they bring digital nomads to the countryside, to small villages with not more than 500 residents, and they provide retreats for them. So 2 weeks retreats where these people, these digital nomads, they work there, but they provide activities, and first of all, of course, they provide accommodation and co-work. Accommodation is only in apartments. It's not a hotel or a big farm place where everything is located. That's normal advantage of co-living places. But as you cannot have this in one place, they're like how they're called, this scattered hotel. There's another term, but I don't remember
Dispersed
right
hotel.
now. Yes. And this dispersed like accommodation then serves digital nomads. So this is how the trends then get together.
Okay. And now you mentioned, or you touched upon the topic of pricing. For a long time, I believe that digital nomadism can only happen in countries with, let's say, lower wages, lower costs of living, because these people are earning money in countries with higher wages, but then they move to, let's say, cheaper countries to enjoy their life there more. But I believe that in your research, you found out that this is not totally true. You mentioned already Norway example, or I believe you stayed in Germany for some time at a co-living center. Can you talk a little bit about the costs and pricings?
So the pricings are very different from location to location, of course, and the pricings is actually, because you need to know that normally you have a long-term guests, so not the guests who would leave in 3 days. They stay here for 3 weeks at least, often, and they stay very often in co-livings. You only can stay more than 1 month, so you cannot stay less, and this brings, of course, the cost down. You have less bureaucracy with them, and very often you can bring them additional offer in catering. So you can bring them lunch, evening, dinner, or also breakfast. In the end, these digital nomads spend a lot of budget in your accommodation, in your co-living. Although at first the prices look smaller than from the normal tourists, because like they're not so big. But if you look at it, that they're there for a long term, of course, it's a big advantage for you. And also, I would say it doesn't really necessarily mean that you need a digital nomad visa support in your country. Of course, it helps. It helps quite a lot, because the goal is to have them in your area at least, of course, 5 months sometimes. That they start to live, that they start to make a family in your area and bring new residents to the places, to attract them to stay there. But it's not completely necessary, because for a shorter period, it's possible also without digital nomad visa. But costs are still sometimes quite important, although not necessary. But it's very much an interest mix of tourism, sustainable tourism, of marketing, and also of the costs. For example, we have co-livings in our nomadism, and on our webpage, you can check them in different countries. So we are talking here about Germany, Spain, or Romania. Also, we have them, but not actually. They just popped in the last month, so they're not yet in nomadism. But we have in Bulgaria. Interesting example also. In Serbia, there is one. In Austria, there is also one. In Italy, we have this retreat center. In Italy, I think, can grow in a very important destination because, of course, Italy is attractive, doesn't have high costs, and it's just Italy. But we also have France. In France, you can actually live in the castle for a quite affordable price, and there are many different other other like examples.
Yeah. Earlier, you mentioned community as one of the top priorities for digital nomads when they're deciding where to go. Can you talk a little bit more about what, in their opinion, what do they mean with community? And what kind of a community activities would that mean, actually?
So we should not forget about the countryside. We are in the rural areas. And one important thing is, as if you work in tourism, you will know this for sure. You need to be very careful not to create a clash between city and rural life. And this is also in this case, because these people who arrive in this countryside destinations, they like nature, they like countryside, but they are not necessarily the same people who would live in the countryside. So what I mean by this, you have a very strong trend, not just trend, but many of these guests, an example, they're vegans, they have special dietary requirements, and if you want to establish a catering there, you need to be very much focused on it. From our check, like we checked different good practices, and I mean, we didn't really focus so much on dietary requirements, but most of those places actually have vegan possibility or vegan offer in their place. And of course, these are people who work throughout the day. They like to hike maybe in the afternoons or in the evenings. They like to run, they like to do sports, but they like to do activities. So this can be sightseeing activities. One important thing is it's good that if you have some yoga activities, Pilates activities, and so on. So this is really like a city folk that is discovering rural areas. And this is important because if you don't think about this, it might provide a clash between new and old people, like let's say in the air quotes. And also it will be hard for you to do a marketing if you are not focused on this area.
Yeah. Drejc, we have a question from Ioannis. He's asking from the interviews that you have conducted, what were the main pain points that the digital nomads commonly address? So what they usually marked as a problem or a challenge in their...
I think one of the problems is also advantage, and whatever you say. It's interesting because there was a strong community, and I asked them actually what were the problems, and in the focus, most of them said were transport connection. But we asked them, because a few of us were interviewing them, how did you solve this? And they said, actually, it was not so horrible, because in the end, the owner or anyone, other guests, they had cars. Sometimes we needed to hitchhike. We hitchhiked for the first time in our life, and we discovered it's not dangerous. So it's not a necessary thing to bring a shuttle to the place, or taxi service, because these people really want to go out of the comfort zone, want to go out of the city life where everything is there for them. But let's take a look at the second also thing, which was a big pain, was, of course, there was not a lot of things happening. So in the area, and some said like that they had a crisis in the beginning, but then they discovered what they can do outside of this comfort zone. So they started to hike, to do sports, and also they started to create new activities for the community. So they started to create their own activities in this community of co-living. And also another thing is, I talked with a guy who stayed in Coconut in Germany. This is about 1 hour and a half away from Berlin, in the middle of the complete countryside. But still, because you have a good train connections, you can arrive in Berlin in 1 hour and a half. So they said, like, at the weekends, sometimes we just went to Berlin and enjoyed life there. And then we returned back on Sunday and started our new work week. And it's interesting. They didn't complain about the fact that you actually had a minibus that you needed to call 1 day in advance to pick you up, unless you wanted to hitchhike or went on foot, which was still possible, because, I mean, to Berlin not, but there was a need for connection to for 5 kilometers. You needed to walk on foot to reach the first train station. So it was not a problem for them.
Okay.
And
okay.
yeah.
So often these pain points, the challenges, are solved by exactly the community that established there, right? And I believe that often it is the former digital nomads who established the digital nomad services, right?
That's true. Yes, very often the ones who established this were digital nomads. Very interesting people. Coconut is a good example. This center was established by an American who moved to Berlin area, and they lived in Berlin. So, and you see that there is, like, of course, a big ecosystem behind it. It's not just this, but still, like, you see, I hope you see the point. I talked with some guy in some Spanish for living, and he also, like, mentioned that he was like digital nomad and so on. One important thing is, it's not so much living costs that are important for establishing of co-livings, but mostly property costs. So if it is possible to buy something for cheap, so farm that's not yet anymore in use, and renovate it in the center where you can offer cheap prices because the property is cheap, and which you cannot afford in cities, because actually it's the property, it's the whole ecosystem is based on the property. It's not the big city life where actually you need to go to restaurants. There is a community, and very often there is, each weekday, maybe someone from the community cooks dinner for everyone. And this is another thing. So this is how the costs are not so high, but still you get it enough to be sustainable.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I suggest we open the floor to some comments from the audience. Any questions? So if anyone has any question for Drejc, feel free to write the question in the chat or just open the mic and ask. Any question, any comment? Otherwise, Drejc, I have a question. So let's say that I'm a owner of a small touristic accommodation somewhere in rural, let's say Slovenia. What would you say are the main steps that I should take to move or to attract digital nomads?
So, of course, first of all, you need a strong internet connection. That's a first step. So this is a different thing than if you compare it. It's not a detox. It's not a like a detox center where you switch off all digital devices. No, that's not. But you actually combine digital world with the physical world. But what is important is, as a tourism provider, it's important that you know what digital nomads need. So the best is that you just go to some place. You don't need to go for 1 month. On example, Coconut is a good example. You can go on it for 2 days if you want. Or some other, in Spain, there is near Valencia, there is also some there that you can be for 1 week only. It's an interesting thing. You can also go probably with to some of these places with children. It's a perfect place because they can play around and so on. But still, like, you need to think about tourism packages that you should provide to these digital nomads. This could include some adventure tours, cultural immersions, eco-friendly activities, evening activities, so on. You should provide some informative materials, maybe on national legislation, local laws, visas, hospitality opportunities, relevant stakeholders, and key actors in the local community. Maybe if you work as someone who is active in the area, so if you are in tourism organization, tourism institute in your area, tourism board, you might provide a digital nomad information hub or website with essential information about the area, including visa requirements, cost of living, healthcare options, safety tips, and clear guidelines for transportation, accommodation, available infrastructure, environment, and community. You need to know that if people decide to join you for digital nomads, for more than 1 month, they want to know exactly what you want them to provide. And you need to have something that's more than normal accommodation. It's important to use social media, of course. This is a digital generation of people. And maybe an interesting way how to do it in the future, also in Slovenia or in different European areas, would be to create some kind of a digital friendly badge. So that you have like eco-friendly, in the same way as we have eco-friendly destinations and places, accommodation, we have digital friendly badge. Because not always digital nomads need community. That's what we, of course, focused on. But sometimes people just want to have a strong internet connection, peace, and to a place where they can work for 1 week on an important project and that they escaped from the city life. So this is maybe sometimes this is a minimum. We didn't really talk about this minimum, but sometimes it's enough. Also, if you want to attract people from an example, I come from Slovenia, and if I want to attract people for 1 week, this digital friendly badge, I can attract also people from Ljubljana. Maybe they want some important project to be done in 1 week, they can do it. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question in the chat from Maria. She's asking, so comparing to the trends right after the digital, right after the post-COVID era, when this trend popped up, have you noticed any changes so that digital nomadism is different now than it was back then?
So our project was mostly in 2023. So it was mostly based on the interviews that we did in the middle of the year. But I followed some of these people. I still have connections with them, and I saw an example. Some of them returned to the city back, but they returned back into the countryside after 3 months. Because still, if you have city life in you, if you work in this kind of field, you still sometimes need to go back, I believe. But still, I believe this trend is growing, and there is much more now focus, still more focus on attractions and experiences. Experience need to be bigger and better and more because the competition is starting to grow. But as I said, like it's not necessary to focus on the digital nomads. We can only focus as partly, so to have digital friendly badge. And I think this is another way how to react to the offer on the market.
Okay. Any more questions from the audience, perhaps? Any dilemma, anything that you disagree with, Drejc?
In the chat, you can find the link to the platform, by the way, just. Yeah.
Drejc, what are your next steps? You conducted the research. What now?
Right now, we are very glad that we can announce that we are just starting a new project. It's in the horizon, so it's getting a bit still more serious. It's a pilot project within the Secret Tour project, and we are very glad that it will allow us to bring digital nomads more directly to our home area of Idria. Based on it, we will do a business model specifications, which of course will be based on Idria, but we'll try to do it in the way that it will fit also some other destinations in Europe. So it can serve for you as a template. So you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, ID20 Institute, find us. And based on it, we also want to establish a first retreat in Idria, because we are one of our projects is also in renovation of the miners' house. We have a special miners' house. What is this actually? It's a specific type of architecture in our area that was in the past used by miners, but now it could be used by tourists. And it's a sustainable way of living, and it's very attractive. Buildings are very attractive for living, and this is where we want to establish at least part of our retreat activities. There is an interesting project, an example, also already in Bulgaria. You can also find it in nomadism, where they also established a co-working, co-living place in an old house. So we are inspired by this project, and we would like to focus still more in the future.
Yeah. Drejc, I just shared your contacts with the participants here in the chat. If there are no more questions, I would thank you for being with us, for sharing your knowledge and your experiences. This was the first webinar in the series of webinars that we are organizing within Cultural Detour. Feel free, everyone, to follow us on our website, where we will post more more information about the upcoming webinars. I would also want to raise attention that this discussion has been recorded and it will be shared with you on the website. So if you want to check up on something, feel free to check it there. Drejc, thank you for your time. Enjoy. I believe it's a sunny afternoon. It looks like that. Yeah, see you soon, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for invitation, and I hope that you learned something new from this webinar today.
Bye-bye.
Bye.